Welcome to Multifamily Grit, where we bring in the experts to share their stories of the celebrations and struggles of one of the most important industries in the U.S., multifamily property management. Kerri sat down with Rachel Spakes, an affordable housing programs coordinator, leadership coach, and self-described Department of One, who has spent years building and leading resident services programs across more than 4,000 units, many with complex LURA service requirements. With a background in education and a career rooted in affordable housing, Rachel has carved out a unique role focused on supporting on-site teams through compliance, training, and human-centered leadership. Rachel's story is grounded in empathy and innovation. After witnessing firsthand the emotional toll that COVID, large-scale rehabs, and increasing service requirements placed on property managers, she shifted her focus beyond compliance toward the well-being of the people doing the work. From managers calling in tears to navigating overwhelming expectations, Rachel responded by building systems, trainings, and support that prioritize the whole person, not just performance. Today, we dive into how Rachel champions the human element in an industry often driven by metrics. From quietly introducing wellness initiatives in an old-school organization, to writing handwritten notes and creating stress management trainings without formal approval, Rachel found a way to lead change from within. We'll explore how she supports managers juggling impossible workloads, why she believes happy teams create better outcomes for residents, and how she's scaling her impact through coaching and consulting for companies that don't have a Rachel. This is a conversation for anyone navigating compliance-heavy environments while trying to lead with heart. Before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Fortress, the only core property management operating system built with an emphasis for affordable owners and operators. Fortress revolutionizes affordable management with features focused on automating housing assistance charges and payments to keep ledgers clean and accurate, centralizing file reviews and document storage through Fortress and AWS, and a free in-system smart waitlist to ensure your property stays in compliance. And don't forget, if you like what you hear today, please like, subscribe, and share with someone you think would enjoy this episode. Now let's get into it. Here's Kerri Davis sitting down with Rachel Spakes for a conversation about human-centered leadership, resilience, and redefining success in affordable housing.
So, Rachel, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. I'm super excited to have you here.
I am so honored and excited to be here as well. Thank you, Kerri.
Yeah, well, and before we kick things off, because I know that our listeners are going to be really interested, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us how you got your start in the multifamily industry.
Like everyone seems to, fell into it. My background is in education. You know, God has such a funny way of working in our lives that I've always been a planner, and I was going to get my degree and come back to Texas and get my master's while I taught, and I was going to become a speech therapist. And instead, I moved to Japan and taught at a junior high and high school there for 6 years, and thought I would be coming back to the US and getting into international education, and ended up back in my hometown working as an after school program coordinator for our elementary school, which I loved, but it was grant funded. And so as the grant was running out, I started looking for other jobs. And I'm from outside of Austin. I think it's the best part of Texas.
Austin is a great city.
So I'd fallen in love with the Texas Hill Country even more than I had before. And so I was really hoping to stay in the area. And so I was applying to any and everything that sounded interesting.
Okay.
And the next thing I know, I get a call from this family, the Hoover family, and I had applied to be a property manager at one of the properties that they owned in town. And the president called me and he said, "You're not really qualified to be a property manager, but I have something better for you. So if you'll come in for an interview, we'll see if it's a better fit." And I was a little offended at first. I'm like, how can I not be qualified to be a property manager? And now that I've been in the business for 9 years, I wouldn't say I wasn't qualified, but I definitely found a much better fit
Okay.
um, for myself. And they were finding that the supervisors were struggling to keep all of their properties in compliance for the supportive resident services that RD and tax credit was requiring, and that they needed an extra person to help monitor and keep the managers in compliance. And the services went from maybe one or two a month to suddenly multiple services a month. A lot of properties having to do services almost daily, if not weekly. And so it was just a huge shift in the industry, and they needed someone who could monitor that. And so they kind of had created this position and said, we think with your skill set and your background that you would do a great job um, in this. And I thought it sounded exciting. The fact that I kind of was able to create it was very exciting to me, and it was a big challenge. And there are a lot of similarities in property management and education, and a lot of things that I had no idea what I was doing. Uh, my very first day on the job was at our annual RRHA convention. And I showed up and I had my badge, and this man standing in line at Starbucks with me, he said, "What is RRHA?" And I said, "I have no idea." I said, "This is my first day on the job, and I really don't even know what I'm doing yet."
I love it.
Uh, and so, baptism by fire, doing that. And the very first day, I did 8-hour fair housing. Um, and the rest is history. I've learned a lot. So I've carved out my own little niche in this industry, and now I can't imagine working or doing anything else. I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story and such an interesting way to fall into property management. I've heard a lot of stories, but this one is really interesting, especially because you didn't take the typical fall into it path of actually working on site as a leasing agent. So, I do have to ask because I feel like a lot of people would say or think that, creating their own role that didn't exist before could either be insanely exciting or absolutely terrifying. And I would argue that the vast majority of the time that people have had the opportunity to do that, they've done it at a company they've already been at, right? So you're already at the company, they already know you. There's a new opportunity that's arisen, or they've seen like your particular strengths and weaknesses and they want to put you in this specific role. But you came in to a brand new company and started a brand new role. I cannot even imagine. So I want to ask a couple of questions about all of this. So
Okay.
first of all, what is RRAJ?
RRHA, I did find out. It stands for Rural Rental Housing Association.
Okay, okay, love
Yes,
that. Yep, yep.
yes. And so our company is a big part of the Rural Rental Housing Association in Texas.
Okay, love that. Um,
Yes, yes.
okay, and then my next question, how did you feel? Were you super excited to start to create a brand new role at a company you've never been at before, or were you super intimidated?
I was super excited.
Yeah,
And then that first day when I'm sitting in a fair housing class, I was terrified.
yeah.
Um, absolutely terrified. And though this is not the first time I've done something kind of crazy that naively in my brain I thought would be, oh, totally fine. And then I get there and I'm like, this is a little more than I expected. Um, when I decided to move to Japan, I had so many people tell me, oh, you're going to love it. The language is so easy. You have such a good ear. You're going to pick it up. And I just believed them. I was 22 and just was like, okay, if you have confidence that I'm going to be fine. And from San Francisco to Japan, I flew on a Japanese airline. And so everything was in Japanese first and then in English. And the whole flight, I just was terrified. I was like, there is nothing easy about this language. Like, they don't even use the same alphabet. And then I ended up obviously loving it because I stayed over there for so long. So I have a tendency to like the big picture in things and jump right in, and usually get overwhelmed when I first actually slow down enough to pay attention to what I've just committed to. Um, but the company I work for is wonderful. Hamilton Valley Management is a small company, and I went to high school with a few of the people I now work with, and have known some of the families for 20 plus years, and I think that helped. And the fact that they had confidence and believed in me that I was going to be okay, and that I knew I had their support. And, most of them have 20 plus years of knowledge in this
Yeah.
business. And so I knew I had a really great support system. And then, being a department of one and them trusting me to kind of just create it how I felt it needed to be, was really amazing.
Yeah.
And the first month, I've asked myself multiple times, like, what on earth were you thinking? Um,
Why?
but as I got to know the managers, well, I guess I was used to working with teachers and students, and I d I realized that working for a company where most of the people I work with are spread out all through Texas,
Yeah.
that I was having to communicate with them, mostly by email, and not all not having ever been on property. In my head, they're all sitting in their office,
Yeah.
at their computer, just waiting to hear from me and waiting to get my emails. And,
Wouldn't that be nice?
um, yeah, I it took me probably a good year of working with the managers to even grasp what they actually do.
Yeah.
And, the more I started understanding what their lives are actually like and what their jobs are actually like, definitely helped me be better for them. Um, but yes, trying to get to know 100 different managers through email. When the first day I sent them an email, and about 15 of them called the office and they said, "Who is Rachel and why is she asking me to do these things?"
Oh my
We're like,
goodness.
"Well, if you'd read your other email, we introduced you to Rachel and told you what she's doing." So um, big learning curve for everyone involved, but it was really awesome. And um, looking back now, I was so naive. I had no idea what I was getting into or what I was doing when I first started, and pretty pretty cool to see where I was and now where I am. And the same with our managers who've been here for that 9 years, that we sometimes will joke about it and be like, "Do you remember when the first time I sent you an email and I didn't know why it took you a day to respond to me?"
Oh, it's so well said. I feel like if we're all being honest with ourselves in discussing like our start in property management, I think naive is the perfect word to use for almost everyone. Maybe unless you've grown up with it like in your home, like
Mhm.
where it was a family business or your mom was a community manager, unless it was that close to home growing up, I think we all entered it with being pretty naive. So
I would agree with that. Yes.
But I think it's humbling to acknowledge it and admit it. So I think that's great. Well, Rachel, so you're still a team of one, but
Mhm.
obviously what you do has changed and evolved over the past few years. So would you mind sharing a little bit about like exactly what it is that you do today, like what your role is and what you focus on?
Okay. Initially I was just focusing on helping the managers stay in compliance for their resident services. So I was focusing on making sure they understood what was required and that they were sending in reports every month so I could monitor and track that, and helping them find partners and
Mhm.
free resources in the community, and doing a lot of networking and connecting behind the scenes for them. And l- I love that. And in at the end of 2019 going into 2020, I had convinced them all to make these year plans where we kind of like tentatively outlined everything we were going to do in 2020. And everyone was so excited for 2020, and we had everyone was going in with an idea of what they were going to do for their residents and for services. And I don't need to rehash what happened to us all in 2020. And
Yeah.
being in the corporate office during that, um, I'm so thankful that I had learned what the managers actually have to put up with before then, because I can only imagine what a disaster I would have been as a leader, if I hadn't have understood that by then. But during 2020, when the services were stopped, and I was still trying to be supportive of these managers, I started realizing how much they needed human connection and support more for their well-being, and um, not just tools to perform their job safely and confidently, but how are they dealing with this stress, and how are they showing up for their residents, but also showing up for themselves and taking the time to take care of themselves. And so I've shifted now where I still focus mostly on services, but I'm also helping them with wellness and with some professional development training that they don't usually get in the normal context of their jobs, with dealing with negotiating and difficult conversations and taking time to rest and managing their time where they can be the best version of themselves while also staying in compliance and handling this very difficult, stressful, crazy job.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this at the time, but when I first brought up wellness to my boss and said, I really want to find a way to help all of our employees, but especially our managers more. And he said, did you know that, um, law enforcement, military, they have like a separate higher insurance rating, like for health insurance premiums, like they have their own little tier. He said property management actually has a higher tier than most professions, because traditionally they are um, more unhealthy, and their jobs are so stressful that a lot of these management companies have to pay higher premiums for their employees. And so that kind of really motivated me, that I wanted to bring in more holistic um, type training and teaching and support, to try to reverse that stigma, and to just give them more tools and support to live better lives, hopefully healthier lives than other people in this profession had before them.
Yeah. I think that that is such a good, piece of information to have, to know that, like obviously, like police officers and firefighters and EMTs have a higher cost to their insurance premiums because what they do is inherently dangerous.
Mhm.
But to think that that same thing applies to those in the property management space, those professionals, is kind of crazy. But I mean, when you think about it, I couldn't just agree with you more about everything that they're trying to deal with. I mean, we ask them to essentially, run multi-million dollar businesses, and they have to handle everything about that, from facilities to sales to customer service to collections. And it's rough. And those are just to name a few. I mean, and to your point, you throw fair housing in the mix, and now you almost have to be like a pseudo attorney in dealing with that.
Mhm.
It's really hard. And so it is interesting, and obviously it's great that your leadership was really aware of kind of like the pressure that's put on the teams. Um, how, like as a company, how are you guys supporting this initiative to provide these sort of services and this sort of like global well-being support to your team members?
It's been slow,
Okay.
much slower than I would like like it to be. We we have amazing leadership, but I would say we're a little more traditional and old school,
Yeah.
in the way our company is led. And so like my direct boss that I was talking to, he's a little closer to my age. And when I first told him my grand plans, he said, this isn't going to fly. um this is not going to be met with excitement. You know our president and vice president are from the days that you suck it up and you go, you show
Yes.
up to work, you don't complain, you do your job, you know um and he said, but I think, he said, I agree with you, but we're going to have to find ways to do this, kind of a little covertly, and a little more, um roundabout. And so I started in 2021. I jokingly called it my goodwill tour, where
I
before
love
then,
it.
I had only really visited managers on site if they had a lot of services and they were either struggling or they were new, and I would go and train them in person. And, Texas is huge, and we have properties all over the state, like as far north as the Oklahoma border, far south as the Mexico border, east west. We're very spread out, and we have over 100 properties. And I'd probably been to 15 or 20 up until that point.
Okay.
And I said, my first thing I want to do is I want to go visit every single property this year and talk to the managers, spend time one on one with them, and get to really connect and see what they're dealing with, really see where they are. And that alone was so eye-opening for me. Um, as I said, I didn't know what RRHA was. You know, in my head, rural um areas in Texas were all like the rural area I grew up in.
Yeah.
And Burnett's grown a lot, but we're a town of 6,000 people. And 10 miles away, there's a town where there's 1,000 people. So in my head, all these managers were in communities similar to mine. And then I start traveling, and I see I couldn't have been more wrong. Um, some of them are in areas that have grown. 30 years ago, they might have been rural, but now they're a suburb of Houston or Austin or
Yes.
Dallas. And they obviously have a lot of support and connection because they're closer to the cities. And then I go to these other properties that the only place you can get food in town is the gas station.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And There was one I was driving to, and there was a sign that I wish I'd taken a picture that literally said, like, you're about to enter a dead zone for the next 45 miles. Like, you're going out into open wasteland, essentially, where there was nothing but
Oh
ranch
my
land.
gosh, that
And
like that I can't even imagine.
um, I, again, I was like, wow, I was so naive that here I have been telling and encouraging these managers like you have resources, you can find resources. And while I still believe that, now when they tell me we don't have anything in our town, I believe them.
Yeah.
you know we used to joke that we didn't have anything in our town because we didn't have a Walmart, but I'm realizing some of these rural properties, they're lucky if they have a Dollar General. um and it's, just knowing how much more support not only those managers, but those residents need,
Yeah.
that, here they are living in affordable housing, and if they don't have transportation, there's not a local transit system, and there's a lot more limited resources than we probably realize. So that's what I started doing. And then I started with some like email wellness challenges and made them optional. And every April, there is a global challenge called Million Mile Month that you can register for free, or you can make a tax deductible donation. And we challenged the managers to join Million Mile Month and encourage their residents to join Million Mile Month.
Oh, so fun.
It's a lot of fun, and the calculator is super generous. So if you go and garden for 30 minutes, you go and type it in the tracker, and it'll tell you how many miles you went while you were gardening. And we reward the top managers, and then the top properties will also, we reward them with a pizza party. So I started finding free things that didn't really cost the company money. I started writing little handwritten notes to the managers, and sending them out in the mail outs, and just, thank you for what you do, and
Yeah.
you're appreciated. And then I started doing monthly trainings where we would go over compliance things and issues that we were seeing, but then we'd also have time for them to share and brainstorm and vent at times. Because if you're in the middle of nowhere in Texas and your closest property is 4 hours away, you
Yeah.
kind of feel alone. And so I started working a lot more on connection, um, and telling them that they have hard jobs, but I see them, and that, these people that you work with are the best support system you're going to ever have.
Yeah.
Because so many people that work in this industry don't have friends and family that understand what they do.
Mhm.
Um, and we need each other
Yeah.
to get through it, because otherwise you feel like you're all alone in this crazy profession.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's so well said. What we do is what multifamily does is so, so unique in the way that we do it. I mean, just even starting with like the decentralized functionality of the workload and how like each community is so much so on an island and it has to perform all the necessary functions of like a, 200 unit guest suite hotel, but with, four people instead of 200. And it's a massive difference in like what we try to accomplish and the spectrum of everything that has to get done. And so I think it is so important to say that like it is really important to find peers who you can discuss these things with and commiserate with and share the challenges and the joys and the successes and the difficulties with, who really understand what you're doing. And I think that is so important.
It's the more time I spend with the managers, the more excited and encouraged I am
Yeah.
about my job because I can get very impatient when I have my grand idea, like, oh, we should all, we should give everyone a standing desk, and we should, I can ignore the price tags, but when I focus on encouraging and supporting these managers that are putting their heart and soul in the job
Yeah.
and working with limited resources, limited support, that it's in that sense it's so similar to education, where like the managers and teachers are fighting uphill battles every day, and they're getting things from the administration and their supervisors and the government, and it's just so easy to feel hopeless and like no one understands you and you're all alone. And um yeah, so I'm try to find ways to make that just a little easier to bear.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, you came into this company to focus on a role that was providing and, and monitoring the support services for the site, for the residents. But you've opened that up to providing a lot of support services directly to the team members who are working on site. I think that that's just really incredible. And the majority of what you do, it makes this really large impact on humans. But and that's fantastic, but that's also hard to quantify. So, how do you measure success in your job? And obviously, your primary function of your job is related to like the support services, not, the well-being initiatives. So we could even start there, but like how do you measure success in terms of the support services that you manage?
Well, I try to make a spreadsheet for everything. But I started on my spreadsheets that, I'm not only tracking if they're in compliance, but am I seeing growth, and how's their attitudes, and um when I actually get feedback in an email or a phone call or a Teams message where they say thank you, or they say, oh, that was so helpful, that I'll save that for the days that are really hard. I was so excited in one of our breakout rooms in one of our previous calls last month. I try to jump in and out, and in it, there was a manager that was sharing her screen and walking the other managers in her group through how she does something. And I can't remember exactly what
Yeah.
she was doing, but that was a huge win. Knowing that 3 years ago, when we made it mandatory to join my monthly calls, 30 managers would still not join, and then they'd be given
Yeah.
a makeup assignment. And now, there's only maybe 5 that don't make it and get the makeup assignment.
Yeah.
Um, but 3 years ago, we had people saying, I don't even know how to turn on my camera. And now they're in meetings, sharing their screens and taking like this leadership role and helping other managers, and things like that. I I take and take as a huge win.
Mhm.
I try sending out surveys and things like that, but you're right. Working with humans is so hard
Yes.
to quantify, and I've encouraged the residents to This engagement is down, no matter what industry you're in or whatever you're doing. Engagement on the whole is down, and so when we're trying to get residents to come to services, it's really disheartening when you plan this amazing
Yeah.
health fair and 4 people show up.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been telling the managers, well, first focus on if 4 people came, you're on a 24 unit property. Four people out of 24 units is really not a horrible
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah.
And I've encouraged them to try to put some numbers to those things. And then I've been working on practicing what I preach, that when I feel discouraged, to actually pause and look and say, okay, well, one person came back and was not excited about this, but 95 participated, and 3 actually responded and gave me actual feedback. So, um, we're humans, and we tend to focus on that negative,
Yeah.
um, or the deficit. And I'm trying to practice what I preach to the managers of look for those good things. Um, it's not perfect, but um, it it works.
Yeah. You are honestly like so clearly passionate about people in this industry. And I mean, from the residents to your team members to even your leadership, and like so compassionate and passionate for everyone who's involved in this cycle. Um, as the world around us is evolving, and as so many companies are talking about trying to find ways to remove human capital from a lot of the equation and a lot of our budgets. Why do you think? Because I guess I shouldn't even ask it that way. Do you think that human capital is necessary in our industry? And if so, why do you think it would be more necessary in our industry than others?
Oh, wow. Absolutely. I it would be so easy to have an online portal for you to pay your rent and to submit your maintenance requests and complaints, but um that machine, or portal is not going to answer the phone in the middle of the night to talk you off the ledge. The stories some of my managers share with me of them going above and beyond, uh, you you can't do that without a human.
Yeah.
Um, and especially where we are, where most of our properties are rural, that not only are we dealing with people who are living in affordable housing, but much more isolated
Yeah.
and without even that additional support, where if they didn't have that human to go turn in their rent and talk to the manager for 5 minutes while they're waiting for their receipt, they might not talk to another human. um,
Such an
there's
interesting way to look at that.
that the effort and love that the managers I work with put into their jobs. There's no way that you could replace that. I've so many of them cook for their residents once a month. They do birthday cards, they do birthday parties. They help them fill out um, applications for benefits or different programs in the area. And you know a, a machine could help you fill out a form, but it wouldn't have the patience to truly walk you through it and translate it and um, hold your hand while you're trying to get some of that stuff done.
Literally and figuratively. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, I just can't imagine not having that human touch, at all the properties, but I really think of those elderly, um, elderly properties where so many of them don't get out of their homes anymore, and that manager or maintenance is their only human connection.
Yeah.
And we need that
Yeah.
desperately. And the more digital our world becomes, the easier it is for us to just hide and not connect with people. And I think it's hurting us as a whole. And I, you we need humans. We need connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that connection is so important as well. I agree with you. I think that's a great answer. So I have one last question before we dig into like my final two questions. Because while I wanted to ask you about the future of like our on-site teams and our operations, I'm also really interested in where you think the future of services is going to go. Given the fact that you've mentioned that engagement is just down across the board, especially in rural areas, it's really difficult to even find these services to provide these benefits. But yet, like the concept of services attached to affordable housing, it doesn't feel like that's decreasing at all. But yet, like gaining the participation is so difficult. So where do you think the future of services is headed for affordable housing?
I I'm still very hopeful that it will continue to be a part of affordable housing. I'm very happy that some more of the newer um, requirements that are coming out are lists where you can pick and choose to fulfill your requirements, and you're not told that, okay, Kerri, your property is only doing credit counseling and financial planning, and you have to do that every month. Well,
Mhm.
that's not something that's going to get a lot of traction
Yeah.
every month. Um, no matter where you are. But the ones that allow you to tailor it to fit your property and tailor it to fit either the season or your demographics is much more successful. And I hope that that continues. And I hope that it becomes a little more friendly to rural areas and friendly to elderly properties. I feel like the services are very skewed towards
Mm,
like mostly family
yeah.
properties, which on one hand I agree that families are the ones that probably need these services the most. But if I just helped fill out a compliance inspection report for an elderly property that we manage, and their required services are credit counseling and financial planning. And, if you have a property that's mostly in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, they're not really needing
Yeah.
that type of support at that point in their lives. Um, So I hope that it becomes just a little more flexible and realistic, where it's a little more organic, where it can grow and actually really help that property and those residents. Um, and I know with us having a lot of small properties, we have a lot that don't have community rooms. And
Yes.
so how can you expect a medical professional to come out and do blood pressure checks if they have to sit in an office that's eight by eight, and the manager is taking up the majority of that room, and still expected to do these services. Um, so I think they're good, and I love the goal of
The
them,
intention, yeah.
the intention, but I hope that they become just a little more flexible and realistic for so we're actually serving the residents,
Yeah.
and where there's a way that we can maybe get the funding to make it more engaging and enjoyable, where y there's a budget
Yeah.
where we can throw a couple $100 behind this credit counseling class and feed them a meal maybe, um, and some people will come and get a meal for
Yeah.
free with grocery prices how they are versus, if they're just gonna get a cup of okay coffee.
Yeah.
Um, um, so that's what I would like to see, is that it's more focused on the actual needs and really making an impact, instead of just checking a box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
To your point, the intention is a little irrelevant if the impact doesn't hit home. So I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think that's a really, really well said, Rachel. Okay, well, Rachel, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I have truly enjoyed talking to you. And I think that the role that you fill is so unique. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I know that a lot of your team members are always shocked when they hear that other companies don't have a Rachel. So like but to be fair though, your role is a little unique. There aren't a lot of companies, especially ones your size, that commit to and source a role like yours, which I think is phenomenal. And obviously, you're providing a ton of impact both to the residents that you serve and to your on-site teams, and helping them serve their residents to helping them serve themselves, which is incredible. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It's just been awesome. But before we sign off, I have the two questions that I like to ask all of my guests. So I'd love to start by asking you if you wouldn't mind to share a story from your time in multifamily with our listeners.
I I've been thinking on this since, like, the very first episode that
Yeah.
I've listened to, um, and I feel like I could go in so many different ways, but, I'm gonna do one. I'm gonna share 2, and they're short. Um, when I first started and I was trying to figure out, what I was doing, I was helping one of our closer properties with a national night out program. And we worked so hard together to get the police lined up to come and the fire department. And I reached out to like 25 local businesses and invited them to come. I connected with the high school, and their NHS kids were coming out to do face painting. I mean, we were going to have hot dogs. We It was going to be the most amazing event ever. Um, and it poured down rain.
Oh, no.
Poured down rain. Thankfully, this property um, did have a community room. It wasn't a huge one, but we had set up games and booths outside. And I went over there at like lunch, and we worked all afternoon getting everything set up, and all the partners were contacting us, and we're like, we're still doing this. We're still doing this. Well, the city of Cedar Park came out and they said, we are not doing National Night Out tonight. We're rescheduling it. And so we had told everyone that we were going, to continue to do this. And it's pouring down rain, and we have an amazing turnout of partners. Um, and and the National Night Out part didn't happen because they rescheduled it. the floor of the community room was covered in mud because people were coming in and out. And
Oh, no.
overall, it really was amazing because we had such a great turnout, and parents and kids were still coming and getting dinner and having food, but we had so many disappointed kids that the fire truck wasn't coming and all of that. And of course, it was totally out of our control, but it was a really good lesson in just event planning and working with a variety of partners. And then, sometimes things happen that are outside of your control. And it was a the most memorable event I've ever actually been and helped with. And that poor manager and maintenance, they sent me home and they're like, "We'll clean up." And oh, that floor, it probably took them like the whole next day trying to get all the mud out of that room. It
Oh,
was
no. That is a memory, though. That's a
it
memory
was
for
it
sure.
was a memory. The other one was pretty wild. I went with a supervisor to do a property inspection,
Ooh,
and
property inspections.
y yes, those were all very eye-opening to me when
Yeah.
I started, but we were walking through one of the bedrooms, and there was a toddler in her crib, and we were standing there visiting with the mom, and she jumps out of her crib and launches herself at me. Um, and she jumped like 3 feet, and thankfully I caught her. Um, it was just the most insane thing that I I'd ever seen. That, I was a stranger, and I'm quite tall, and so for this child to just obviously have faith and confidence that I was gonna catch her, um, was the wildest thing that I've ever seen happen.
That's so funny. I've experienced a lot of things on property inspections. That's not one of them. So I've never had a child catapult themselves at me.
Yeah, it was
I'm not very athletic. I probably would drop.
yeah. I was glad I was paying attention because the mom and the supervisor weren't even looking at the child, and so I was just glad I saw her before she hit the ground.
Oh my gosh, that is such a funny story. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing both of those. And then my final question, which I'm so intrigued as to what your answer is going to be. You gave me a heads up on this one. What book would you like, or books would you like to recommend to our listeners?
I really tried to narrow it down, but I love books. And all my books are in front of my camera, but I do have a couple I want to share.
Go for it.
Um, for the wellness part of me, I love this "You Can't Screw This Up" by Adam
Oh,
Bernstein. It's the most amazing book on eating well and, like, the science behind it, but it's written in such a wonderful and engaging, um, way.
love.
I Such a good book, and at the back of it, it has, like, the healthiest things you can order from the top 50 restaurants in the US.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to read
Um,
that. I'm
yeah.
obsessed with like eating healthy, and like I turned 40, a few years ago. I'm 42 now. And like when I did, I was like, okay, Kerri, statistically speaking, half of your life is over. Like how you experience the next half of your life is really going to depend on how you choose to like engage with your health today. And so I went through like this massive rehab. I'm not perfect, but I did go through this like massive like renovation of who I am and like what I consume and how I eat and those sorts of things. And so I'm super passionate about that. So it's a fantastic recommendation, and I will be reading that.
Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote the foreword,
Okay.
and the two of them plus another guy have Arnold's Pump Club as a daily newsletter. Also highly recommend. It's
Love.
the most inspiring 5-minute newsletter. Um, I love that. Most of the managers that I work with are women,
Yeah.
and I Love this book on time management by Kendra Adachi called The Plan.
Yeah.
Managing Your Time Like a Lazy Genius. And she brings out that there's 97% of the books written on managing your time are written by men.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read a lot of them, and a lot of them are fabulous. But as she brings out, most men are not also emotionally managing their households on top of their jobs.
Yep.
So it just kind of brings in the mental load and
Love that.
really gave me a lot of insight.
I will be reading that one too. These are great, Rachel.
Fantastic. I love this one by Allie Worthington, Fierce Spay.
Okay.
Getting over fears and a lot of what ifs that we can get in our head. Love it. I love The Power of Habit.
One of my favorite books of all time.
I've read it 3 times because I've just enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I go on a long trip and I'm driving, I'll re-listen to it.
Yeah.
And I love Greg McKeown. I like his book Essentialism as well, but Effortless was definitely my favorite.
Okay.
And I tailored this book on a training for my managers about just kind of, are we doing in affordable housing when you're working with the government? We know that there's not always things that are efficiently done.
Yeah.
And we can't change all of those, but I liked some of the prompts in here that the things that we can control, are we doing them as efficiently
Yes.
as we can, or are we working harder for the sake of working harder when we could make things easier?
Yes. Oh, love that.
Yes. And rounding it out, since I started mentioning him, I have become the
Really?
hugest Arnold Schwarzenegger fan.
I love it.
I really like his book, The 7 Tools for Life. And I really enjoy his daily newsletter because it focuses on health and wellness. But I also he's very interesting, and I like how he just wants more positivity in the world and just really encourages people to take time to talk and get to know each other. Um, no matter, no matter what side you're on in anything, like let's be kind and let's talk.
Yeah.
And stop all this fighting. Um, so those were the ones I narrowed it down to. I
Oh my
know.
gosh. Okay. Well, first and foremost, let me just say, I just added 4 books to my list. And I'm not kidding when I tell you, Rachel, I could go 4 podcasts without adding a book because I've read a lot of books. And so a lot of times, like the recommendations that come through my show, I've already read, listened to, whatever, or they come through the podcast. So that's phenomenal. Like I had high expectations of this section with you because of what you had said. I had high expectations, but I'm blown away. I truly am. The scope of the books, they're not all in the same lane. The fact that I haven't heard of even a few of these, that they're so niche. And also I'm so intrigued by the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing. Like I don't know that world. I don't know him at all. But I will be looking into this. So thank you. This is incredibly valuable. I feel like you've given me a gift. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I love books. At the end of every one of my trainings with my managers, every month we have a book of the month, and I just quickly say, I chose this book, and here's like 5 things that I think you can take from it.
Yeah.
And then if they were on the live call, we draw, and someone randomly will win the book. There's so many great ones out there.
Yeah.
But I just love them.
Yeah. No, I am here for it. I will be adding some new books to my Audible library tonight. So, well, Rachel, Thank you so much, seriously, for taking the time to do this with me. This was a phenomenal conversation. What you're doing is absolutely so incredible, so valuable to our industry and to so many of those who are living in affordable housing and the services and the well being that you're trying to support for your on-site teams. It's you're doing something really incredible and pretty unique, and a role that you forged, a path that you forged. A new path you forged yourself, which is really incredible. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your book recommendation.
Thank you. I had a blast.
Yes. Well, I can tell you one thing. I will certainly be reaching out to you once I'm done with this book list and asking you for more. So
Awesome. I always have a list.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again, Rachel.
Yes. Thank you, Kerri. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Multifamily Grit. I hope you enjoyed hearing Rachel Spakes' incredible journey and perspective on the human side of affordable housing. Rachel's story is such a powerful reminder that behind every property, every compliance metric, and every resident service program are people who need support, encouragement, and care to truly thrive. We also want to give one more shout out to Fortress, our episode sponsor. Fortress is committed to revolutionizing affordable property management with smarter, more efficient solutions that help operators streamline compliance, empower teams, and keep communities thriving. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague who would enjoy Rachel's insights on leadership, wellness, resident services, and supporting on-site teams with intention and heart. Until next time, stay gritty, stay passionate, and we'll see you back here soon.